Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Movie Show. I'm Rob.
And I'm Ryan.
And this week we saw Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah.
So I read the comic for the first Kick-Ass. I didn't read the comic called Kick-Ass 2. I saw the first movie. What is your Kick-Ass
Background?
What's your background?
I have read none of the comics, and I have seen Kick-Ass numero uno.
Okay. So I was torn on this movie.
You know what? Walking into it, I wasn't expecting a lot from those, like, the margin of reviews that you had sent me earlier.
Yeah.
The 28% from, like, critics.
Yeah,
and then the 77% from, like, people who aren't critics.
Yeah, so to give the context, on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie had a really super crazy low critic score of 20-something% and a super high fan score, where the fan score was high enough that it would be certified fresh if both of them were up there. And usually that means really shitty, dumb movie, because people who were just there to have fun had fun with it,
Right.
and people who were there to try to critique film and think that anything that... that's getting into my views on film criticism, which is another...
That's another ballpark altogether.
Yeah, it's another subject entirely. Getting back to Kick-Ass 2, the reason I was so conflicted on it, I feel falls in pretty well into that 2-score range, where I felt that if the movie didn't insist on trying to act like it had a really deep point to it, I wouldn't have minded as much. But every 10 minutes in this movie, the movie is trying to remind you, I'm a serious look at what it would be like if superheroes were real, and I'm going to explore the ifs, the what-ifs of superheroes in the real world. But then, the other thing that's going on in this movie is that it's an action film, and as an action film, it has to keep raising the stakes of its action set pieces, otherwise people are going to get bored. You don't have the big climactic car chase where somebody's on the roof and kicking people at the start of the movie, and then go back to a fight with street thugs, and,
right.
People get...
You slowly work your way up.
So, I feel like this movie put itself in a bad place by going too big too early, and then it had to keep topping it. And it did keep topping it, but the more it kept topping it, the more it got, out of phase.
At the beginning, I could kind of see that that everything was in the right place, and they could have progressed in a manner where, had they balanced everything correctly, again, they were trying to, show the duality between, okay, here's a person who's actually kind of their superhero, who's now this school regular schmuck person.
Yeah.
And then your schmuck becomes a superhero, and they're doing that at the beginning. I'm like, okay, I can follow this. This is kind of cool. But then I agree, they lost it.
Yeah.
As the movie went on, as it hit the end, I'm like, okay, nope.
And they had this last minute save where, speaking of which, we should restate the rules. Spoilers are allowed on this show, and we will talk about the movie in its entirety. So, especially for what I'm right about to say, spoiler. Right at the end, they have this move where they go away from the superheroes wouldn't work in the real world to there can be superheroes, you just have to be super badass, like me. Super badass man. and I felt like they spent the whole movie trying to convince you that this stuff was ridiculous.
And then at the end, they're like, maybe it's not so ridiculous. Or something like that.
Yeah,
that's the feel I had at the end. Is they basically were like, here's all of this, this isn't gonna actually happen or work in the real world. And at the end, they're like, surprise!
Yeah, the
super
weird
fight.
The change of tune was kind of weird. I really didn't like the effects in this movie.
You were saying in particular, the blood effects just bothered you.
A pet peeve of mine is digital blood splatter in films because it looks really fake and it doesn't interact with anything. And there is a lot of blood splatter in this movie, and it is all terribly fake looking. Even as far as digital blood splatter goes, it looks like some of it looked like somebody had like
Just took like a bottle of like ketchup and was like,
someone had a beginner course in After Effects and was just like, it'll start here and the person moves and the blood's still spurting from the same spot. And like there were only a few that were that bad, but it may come from the fact that this movie cost only $28 million.
yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's still post production. It's
one of the more expensive parts.
I guess,
so
but it's a little thing. You just be like and make it work.
So I
just
should
a little bit more.
I should clarify that $28 million sounds like a lot of money.
It really is.
But
not
you have
much.
to realize that they spent like $8 million marketing this film.
Isn't it like 50%?
So
was the
it's
metric for
so you take
for that.
The rule of thumb in movies is you take 50% of everything that you spent before marketing and spend that on marketing. So a third of the issued budget for a movie is roughly how much they spent on marketing usually. So if it's 28 million, a third of 28 million is almost 10, so somewhere around 8.
Yeah.
Doing the quick math. So they probably spent, 8 million on just marketing.
And then that leaves them just a little bit of playroom on the sides.
Now, to say some good things about this movie, they did a lot on $20 million.
Yeah, they did. That was a very long movie.
They're not paying big actors, is the other thing. They don't have, like, a Robert Downey Jr. or a Matt Damon.
Well, they have Jim Carrey.
They had Jim Carrey.
And I think that was like... Oh, no, they also had Turk from Scrubs.
True, but those aren't people who are traditionally high-paid actors in Hollywood. Like, Robert Downey Jr., I think, is currently the most expensive man in Hollywood to hire. In that for the entire budget of this movie, you might have been able to hire him. I'll have to check that number later because I may be totally off, but I'm pretty sure he gets... Will Smith
Will
as well
Smith is apparently the most expensive.
So, with kind of limited resources, and it is kind of like it's a big movie, but it still feels like kind of a niche movie. It's a smaller production company.
Right.
If I don't want to say sophomoric because the jokes didn't quite reach like a sophomoric level, but if you don't mind people saying cuss words a lot and there's some like bodily functions jokes, some people get bit in the dick by a dog, a lot of people get punched in the dick, somebody vomits and shits at the same time. If you don't get offended by that stuff and find some of that stuff funny, which I kind of do. Some of it's
I enjoyed the humor in that movie for the most part. Most of it hit, and then I was like, that was funny because a man just got bit in the penis by a dog named Eisenhower.
Yes,
that's delightful because the dog is named after a president. And the dog's biting someone's dick off.
Oh yeah, no, and the command
funny.
The command for the dog to bite somebody's dick was schwanz, which is like I don't know what you want. It's like a slang word for dick.
All right, I didn't know that, but
it's like
right.
It's internet fake German for dick. It's the
best German.
The derivation of it is really convoluted, and I won't go into it here. But Jim Carrey was very good. I mean, he kind of disavowed this movie afterwards. There was a whole thing where Jim Carrey really isn't into violence, and he felt like the violence in the movie was a bit over the top, so he actually made a public statement saying that he, kind of regretted his pick to do this movie, which, take it or leave it, he turned in his performance, and it was very good before that happened. And Hit Girl is still the best thing about these movies. The guy who plays Kick-Ass is still really okay.
Yeah.
He has a couple moments that are really good. He's kind of annoying as the narrator.
I really never noticed that he was narrator. But it's like, I mean, maybe they didn't narrate this one as much, but
he was narrating all over the place.
Really? I must have just completely ignored it. You know what? Maybe this is a good reason why you don't have one of the main characters narrate it.
Well, it was more of a anyway. So
because if lost in the cloud somewheres.
Yeah. So anyway, if you have a certain sensibility, a certain humor, you can have a lot of fun with this movie. The action scenes are really good. if you don't pay attention to the part where the plot's trying to tell you something and the things that you're seeing are telling you something else, then there's some really enjoyable shit in this movie.
Yeah.
I can totally see maybe not recommending it for a movie theater watching. I think this would be just as good on the small screen. If you rent it on DVD or if it ends up on Netflix, it would be a good watch.
Yeah, I would watch this again just for the ha-has. Just like, just a funny movie to watch at some point. I would long watch this movie as a comedy more than I would try to get any serious engagement out of it.
And they fixed one of the problems of the first movie that a lot of people levied against it, which was that a lot of people accused Kick-Ass 1 of not knowing whether it wanted to be lighthearted or serious, but I think they still bounce back and forth a bit, but the serious bits are so over the top that it makes lightheartedness feel more in place. Like, the violence is so comical, especially... Alright, so we have to mention Mother Russia.
Yeah. Mother Russia...
I forget.
Mother Russia, in fact, yeah.
I forget the actor's name.
Olga.
Olga...
No, not I forget the actor who played the motherfucker.
His actual name is Christopher something.
Christopher D'Amico. I don't know the actor's name, but the character of Christopher D'Amico, who was Red Mist, the son of the mafia boss from the last movie, becomes
McLevin.
The guy who played McLevin becomes a supervillain named the Motherfucker. And if that doesn't tell you the sensibility that this movie has, that the main antagonist is named the Motherfucker, it's really delightful now that I'm looking back on it.
That's the thing, is like when they do all these things, I'm like, wow, that's funny because I don't know, it's very refreshing almost. It's something that I don't see in other movies a lot, like just that kind of take on humor.
Yeah, it kind of has.
It's almost sort of almost like a more modern internet sense of humor.
Yeah,
with less kittens.
With less kittens. I feel like I kind of have like a Napoleon Dynamite thing going on with this movie, in that I didn't find it that funny when I watched it, but looking back, it was really funny.
I would agree with you, except for the part where I loathe Napoleon Dynamite for being a movie that exists.
All right, moving on from the comparison then. So, the Motherfucker hires a bunch of henchmen, like a bunch of his own Legion of Doom.
Right.
And he gives them all these stereotypical nicknames.
Super racist names.
Yeah, so there's this little this little Italian guy who's short, and he's short and he likes killing people. He'll be the tumor. And there's this ex-Yakuza guy, Genghis Carnage. And then that African American kickboxer, the Black Death.
Black Death.
The Black Death, and they paint this, and they give him these really awesome supervillain uniforms, and it's a lot of fun. And and there's this ex-KGB officer who's a woman who he names Mother Russia, and Mother Russia is the facet of this movie where it decided sense does not exist.
No.
This woman can do anything. At one point, she's just slaughtering police officers. 10 police officers.
In a row.
Yeah, she pries the door off a cop car with her bare hands, uses it as a shield, bumps one cop that was shooting at her to get the gun out of the way, throws it at the other guy, kills the cop with the door with a big fake blood splatter.
With that. And you can always tell it's a fake blood splat, too, because they're like, splat!
Yeah, there's
there's this little,
thanks. Whoosh noise.
Like the little added digital effect there.
Yeah.
They added in just an extra amount of noise.
Whenever I see little things like that, I always imagine the guy it is to, search through the squishy noises database and find the one perfect, whoosh, to put right in that spot.
Funny thing about that is, back in the day, they used to, take just weird stuff and just record people brushing things against each other.
Oh, yeah, no.
Until they got the right sound.
Yeah,
Can you imagine being that guy who is responsible for that exact squish noise?
Oh, I know. That stuff always fascinated me about movies. It's really... it's fucking interesting.
Yeah, I guess.
But getting back to Mother Russia, physics do not apply to her.
Well, she's Mother Russia. She has bare hands that she used to rip the door off.
It was I feel like she almost makes other parts of this movie more excusable via her presence. Because the fact that she's there let me know. It was the movie telling me, like, by the way, you shouldn't take a lot of this stuff seriously. We have a woman named Mother Russia who has literal superpowers. She is super strong. She's wearing almost nothing.
Well, that was a costume
no armor.
that got given
Hit
to
Girl's
her.
like punching her in the chest, and her fists are just
She's like,
bouncing
"Nah."
off this woman's abs, and it's totally fucking ridiculous. I have to say, there were things I didn't like about it, but looking back on it, I can say fond good things about Kick-Ass 2.
I agree. Like I said, I would watch this movie again more as a comedy than anything else, or at least as a source of comedic value. I suppose might be the better way of wording that.
If you don't like a lot of violence, if you don't like a lot of blood, if you don't like bodily function humor, this isn't your movie.
No.
If you have a, I guess, dirtier sense of humor, if you like jokes like that, if you don't mind a lot of gory, like, it's not realistic gore, it's like B-movie gore.
Right.
If you like that kind of thing, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
All right. I think that about does it for us on Kick-Ass 2.
Yep. Good enough for me.
Yeah. Until next week.
I have no idea what we're going to see next week.
Yes.
Did you have anything in mind?
Well, The World's End comes out next week.
I have heard nothing about that.
Oh man, it's a new Simon Pegg movie.
I don't know who that is.
Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Gotcha.
The same crew that brought us Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Now I'm excited.
Simon Pegg was the guy who played Shaun and the main guy from Hot Fuzz.
All right, that's why I recognize it.
He was also Scotty in the new Star Trek films and was fucking brilliant at it.
Fair enough.
Anyway, that's what we're going to be seeing next week because I'm
that works
excited
for
about
me.
it. And then I think we might also try to do a look back at summer movies because I believe this week, looking ahead at the schedule, ends our the
big summer
the summer
hits.
movies for the year.
Okay.
There are no more
Nothing after this is like
big
really
budget
gripping or something.
dumb gun shooting movies.
Okay.
No, I don't want to say that no more movies this year are going to be good. But
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like the major attention grabbers for the summer are long past.
All of the tentpole, spend a lot of money, blow stuff up, hire big actors, make them fucking shoot things while they explode. All that stuff is done for the summer.
All right.
Anyway, that's what we'll be doing next week.